Every so often I get a request to make a video from you guys. Now usually I don't end up making the video because I have no idea where to start or how to make the video. But not so recently I got a request to make a video taking photos like I do, but only being allowed to use a smartphone. In other words, no DSLRs and no PCs to edit the photos. You're only allowed to use things that you can get on your phone. And for some reason this really intrigued me because I never think of my phone as a very good camera. I tend to only use it for Instagram stories and capturing moments that I don't think need to look good. But with modern smartphone cameras being so good, I've seen a lot of videos with very talented photographers making it difficult to differentiate between DSLR photos and smartphone photos. So today I'm going to take 3 photos in different environments that I took on my Canon 100D DSLR and try to get as close as possible to those photos with my iPhone 7. It's not the latest or the greatest, but you can't deny that it does have a pretty good camera, even compared to some modern phones. So this is location number 1, the only and therefore my favorite forest in town. So the reason that this first test is in a forest is because I think that this is a great place to test dynamic range. Dynamic range is the difference between the bright areas in a picture, such as the sky in this case, and the dark areas, for example the ground, the trees, and even the bike at the moment. This is something that phones tend to struggle with in comparison to a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, which is usually a reason to buy a full-on camera and not just use your phone. There's also a lot of texture on the trees and the pine needles, so it should be a great test of sharpness on the phone too. So this is the photo that we're going to try and get as close to as possible. Keep in mind it is a different day, there are different conditions, as well as the phone is a different focal length, and there are many variables like that. But for the most part, this is what it's going to be like if all you had was a phone, to see if this is what you could make. So immediately the biggest struggle for me so far is the focal length. It's far off of what I'd usually shoot on a DSLR. I'd usually use about a 50mm on a crop sensor, which is around about 80mm I think. So a phone is a big difference from that. It also doesn't have such a wide aperture, so the bokeh is different. So right away trying to line up the same shot of the R6 behind the tree is proving to be pretty difficult. But I think I got a shot that I'm pretty happy with, and that with editing it should at least be a nice photo. It might not be like the other one that I took, but it should be fine. So this is the location that bridges the gap between location 1 and location 3. It's also known as location 2, and coincidentally it is actually a bridge. So this is the photo that we are trying to get as close as possible to. Now the only difference between that day and today is that the last time I took this photo it was overcast, and today it is a beautiful sunny day. But to be honest, that is actually a really good thing for the phone, because phones have such small sensors, they need all the light that they can get. So a bright sunny day is the ideal conditions for phones. So I think that this might be the easiest photo for the phone to replicate. The hardest thing is going to be, once again, the focal length. Okay, so this has been far more difficult than I expected it to be. I thought this would be the easiest one so far, but as I suspected, the focal length is nearly impossible to replicate the original photo, and the harsh sun isn't as beneficial as I suspected. And finally, welcome to the third and last location. So the point of this location is basically the equivalent of low light. With my camera, I'll never shoot anything that is darker than this without a tripod. So that is why we're going to try this. As you can see, it is pretty much fully covered. The light is only coming in from there and the broken panel on the roof. So I want to see how a phone could handle this. So here is the picture that we are trying to get as close as possible to, and personally I think the phone will be able to do this one far better than any of the others. So just like the first time that I took the first photo of this with my DSLR, the bike is leant against the wall. So we've taken the left bar end mirror off, leant it against the wall, and put a piece of rubber between the wall and the bar end so that nothing is damaged. Now this, however many months later, almost a year, it is still one of my favorite photos that I've ever taken of the R6. So I'm pretty excited to redo it and try and see what we can come up with the phone. So let's get to it. Okay, so the phone seems to be handling this one really well, far better than the photo that I had originally taken with a 50mm lens on my DSLR. This original photo was taken with the kit lens, so it was an 18-55, but most likely taken at around 18mm. So this is far closer to that focal length, and therefore we can get a similar shot much easier. So just like this, it's looking really nice. It's not really struggling without blowing the images up in the dark environment, and I'm very impressed. So usually around this time in the video with taking photos, I'll say something like, let's head home so we can edit the photos. But the beauty of taking photos on your phone is that we can edit them wherever we want, where we took the photo, or like here. So if you look just between the trees, you can see the R6, and this is the nice place that we get to edit photos today. So while I edit these photos, I do want to point out that the problem with these photos is purely me. To get to a level that I am happy with a DSLR, I've spent hours behind it, learning lots without even realizing it. So this is the first time that I've attempted what I would consider photography with a cell phone, and it definitely shows my lack of experience with these photos. But nevertheless, the camera or the phone is not the problem. My lack of experience is here today. I'm sure if I spent more time taking photos with the phone, they would start to come out a lot better. So one of the requests for this video was to not use a PC to edit any of the Adobe applications on a computer. So what I've done is I downloaded, I think it's called Lightroom Photoshop or whatever they call it, by Adobe on your cell phone. I've been very impressed with this app. It has so many of the same functionalities that you can find on the PC, all in a little phone app, so there are really no limitations. So with this app offering you the same things that I get on my PC, I actually ended up editing them the same way that I would on my PC. So from that point of view, they should be exactly the same. So first I'm going to talk about the cons of shooting on a cell phone, and then we'll get to the pros, because there are definitely some of each. So the first con is that you can't shoot in RAW on this phone. I'm not even sure if any phones can shoot in RAW at this point, but I could be wrong. Now with RAW, you are able to do far more in editing with desaturating specific colors than you can with a typical JPEG. So that was a limiting factor, but not a huge downside. The second con is the one that I complained about most of all, which would definitely get better with experience, and that is the focal length. I still haven't looked up what the focal length on this is, but I would guess around 18mm. Because on the third photo, when we were shooting at around 18mm on the original photo, this could make it look very similar to that. The low light it didn't even struggle with, so that one I was very impressed with. The third con is not being able to change the settings. I did only use the stock camera app that came with the phone, so I couldn't change any settings. I do know that you can get other apps to change the settings within the camera, but at the end of the day, they just don't change as many things as you can see on a DSLR. And the final con of shooting with a phone is the feel. I love the feel of shooting with a DSLR, being able to look through the viewfinder, choosing your focus point, zooming in and out if it is a zoom lens, being able to change your settings. It just makes you feel more like a photographer, and therefore I think that it affects my creativity to an extent. So now we can move on to the pros of the phone. So the main pro that I'm absolutely loving is the convenience. Usually I have tons of gear. I'm worried about getting stolen because I live in a dodgy country. You have to get your camera out, choose your lens, take lens caps off, make sure your settings are right, set up the photo you want. Then you head home, take the photos off of your camera, onto your computer, edit them, upload them to Google Drive, download them onto your phone, and then you can only post them. But with a phone, you simply ride up to your location, pull it out of your jacket pocket, take some photos, edit it there if you want, or in a place like this, and I can upload them all from my phone. The second pro of shooting with your phone is that you actually save money. A lot of people are very willing to put money into their cell phones, but aren't so keen to spend money on a DSLR if they already have a good camera in their phone. And that is understandable. If you are in the right conditions, a phone is all you really need. I couldn't tell the difference between a phone and a DSLR in perfect conditions. It's only when you start to ask more of the phone that you notice the difference between a DSLR and a cell phone. As for the other two locations, I don't think I really did the phone justice there, and with more experience you could definitely get a better photo out of it. But overall, this was a really fun challenge. I don't think I did the phone justice, as I'm sure a lot of you think. I know a lot of you will only shoot on your phone, so let me know why you'd rather shoot on your phone than invest even in a cheap DSLR down in the comments. I'm not really happy with how the photos came out. My favorite one is definitely the last one. I don't think you can tell a difference between the real one and a DSLR. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget the pleasantries. Please hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of the sexy R6, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next video.